What's up? It's been a while. How you guys doing? Hopefully you're good. I'm good myself. Got a little bit of catching up to do. I've been gone the past few weeks. I went on a little road trip over my Christmas and New Year's with my grandpa. It was a nice trip, and maybe I'll show some pictures and video in a separate video, but we'll save that for later. For now, we have about 4 weeks of catching up to do, so let's get into it. So we left off, I believe my last video was the day before the Week 15 game where Green Bay played Carolina and they defeated them 24 to 16. Green Bay won. No big game from anyone, pretty boring game, nothing spectacular, but the Packers did win. The next week, in Week 16, Green Bay defeated the Tennessee Titans 40 to 14. Excuse me. Green Bay looked dominant on offense, and they shut down Derrick Henry. Uh, just the offense looked unstoppable, and Derrick Henry just could not get anything going against our run defense, which is a bit of a interesting sight, not one that we Packer fans get to see often. Our defense actually doing something against the run. That game, Aaron Rodgers went 21 of 25, threw for 231 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did throw 1 interception to Malcolm Butler. Almost a perfect game for Rodgers, like I said, 21 of 25, 231 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Without that interception, it pretty much would have been a perfect game. A.J. Dillon that game, the Packers' rookie running back this year, had 21 carries for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. Bit of a breakout game for him. Aaron Jones, the normal starting running back, had 10 carries for 94 yards, and Davante Adams had a wonderful game, 11 receptions, 142 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Just like the week before, the offense looked unstoppable, and the defense played pretty well considering they only allowed 14 points from a pretty good Tennessee offense. For Tennessee in that game, Ryan Tannehill, their quarterback, threw the ball 24 times, completing 11 passes, had totaling 121 yards. He did throw 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. And like I mentioned before, Derrick Henry did not have a great day by his standards. He had 23 carries for 98 yards, which isn't bad for a typical normal running back, but for Derrick Henry standards, that's a pretty below average game. Packers win that one 40 to 14. In Week 17, to close the regular season, Green Bay traveled down to Chicago, and they defeated the Chicago Bears 35 to 16. With that win, and I believe with the Seattle loss, they clinched the #1 seed and a bye for the NFL playoffs. In that game, Aaron Rodgers threw the ball 24 times, completing 19 passes, 19 of 24, for 240 yards and 4 touchdowns, each touchdown to a different receiver. Running the ball, Aaron Jones had 11 carries for 42 yards and 1 touchdown. Not a big running day for Green Bay. It was a heavy passing attack with Rodgers' 4 touchdowns. One of them going to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who had 2 receptions for 87 yards and 1 of Rodgers' 4 touchdowns. Davante Adams had an okay game, 6 receptions for 46 yards and 1 touchdown. And the tight end Robert Tonyan and I believe our third string tight end Dominique Daphne also caught a touchdown pass from Rodgers that day. Excuse me. For Chicago, Mitch Trubisky threw the ball 42 times, completing 33 passes for a total of 252 yards. He did not throw any touchdowns, but he did throw 1 interception to Adrian Amos. For Chicago running, David Montgomery carried the ball 22 times for 69 yards and did have 1 touchdown. Other than that, not a great game from Chicago. Their offense kind of sputtered out, especially since they only had the 1 touchdown. A couple field goals, but once they got the red zone, the Packers' red zone defense just shut down Chicago. A couple notes from that game. Green Bay scored 14 points in the 4th quarter to secure that win, and Green Bay heads into the playoffs with a 1 seed and the bye, as the #1 seed is the only team that gets a bye this year, as the NFL kind of shook up the NFL playoff rules this year, adding 1 team from each conference, so 7 teams from each, 14 total, and only the 1 seed gets the bye. 2 plays the 7, 3 plays the 6, and 4 plays the 5, respectively. So yeah, Green Bay heads into the playoffs at 1 seed with that bye and coming off of a big rivalry game win. Now we'll get into the playoffs. And here I would like to try to talk more about the NFL as a whole, especially now that we are in the playoffs. I can now focus in on the NFL as a whole in the playoffs. I didn't do that in the regular season as other YouTubers do that, and I like to focus on Green Bay specifically. However, in the playoffs, I'd like to focus on the NFL as a whole because there's just more to talk about that way. So Green Bay had the bye, and they did not play this past week in the playoffs. As of the time of this recording, we are a few days away from the divisional round, and the wild card games are a few days, or we are a few days removed from the wild card weekend. So I will start with the AFC. In the AFC, the Buffalo Bills defeated the Indianapolis Colts 27-24. The Baltimore Ravens defeated the Tennessee Titans 20-13. A couple notes from that one. The Baltimore defense shut down Derrick Henry, just like Green Bay Packers did in the regular season a few weeks prior. And Baltimore Ravens starting quarterback Lamar Jackson gets his first playoff win in his career. He was previously 0-2. So we will see how he goes from here. And to round out the AFC, the Cleveland Browns defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers 48-37. Cleveland put up 48 points against that Pittsburgh defense. Wow. This was Cleveland's first playoff appearance since 2002, and this was their first win since 1994 when Bill Belichick was the Cleveland Browns head coach. Also in that game, Ben Roethlisberger threw 4 interceptions, which obviously contributed to Pittsburgh's loss or Cleveland's win, depending on how you look at it. I will get to them later. So, in the AFC, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the Washington football team 31-23 in a closer game than many people thought. A lot of credit to Washington. Their defense is pretty good. I would say that on the defensive side, they seem to be in a win-now mode. Hopefully they draft well and kind of shore up that offense. Maybe they go after a quarterback or some offensive line help. And I think they have a bright future. I honestly do. As long as they figure out whatever mascot they're going to be, because obviously they can't stick with football team forever. They do have to figure out some sort of team identity, but that's besides the point. Also in the NFC, the Los Angeles Rams defeated the Seattle Seahawks 30-20. Seattle just fell flat against an injured Rams team. Not really sure what happened there. I did receive the news today that Seattle has fired their offensive coordinator, so we'll see what happens with them. But they seem to have a lot more questions than answers at this point. But the Rams move on and Seattle goes home. Finally, in the AFC, the New Orleans Saints defeated the Chicago Bears 21-9. And one interesting thing about this game is not only was it broadcast on CBS, it was also broadcast on Nickelodeon. Now, normally when you think of Nickelodeon, you think of SpongeBob or iCarly or Drake and Josh or all those other shows in our childhood, and whatever they're showing now, I don't really know. But it was a very interesting broadcast. Maybe you've seen some screenshots or some video from the broadcast, but I didn't hate it. I didn't love it either. I don't know. We'll see what the NFL plans on doing with that. Maybe they'll have more NFL games on Nickelodeon. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So heading into this weekend is the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. On the AFC side of things, we have the Baltimore Ravens traveling to Buffalo to take on the Bills. We also have the Cleveland Browns heading to Kansas City to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. My quick predictions on those: I think Buffalo will win, and I also think that Kansas City will win, which would mean that Buffalo would travel to Kansas City next weekend for the AFC Championship game. In the NFC, The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, are heading to New Orleans in a Breeze versus Brady matchup. Should be interesting. New Orleans did defeat Tampa Bay in both regular season meetings this year. I think that trend continues, and I think New Orleans will get the win. I think this game will be a little bit closer than the other ones have been. I think within a touchdown or so. But I do think that Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints get the win and they advance to the championship game. And obviously, the final game in the NFC that I will be talking about, not in chronological order as they play on Saturday and not on Sunday, the Los Angeles Rams travel to Green Bay to take on the Packers and Aaron Rodgers in the frozen tundra at Lambeau Field, where there will be roughly 8,000 fans in attendance. If I remember correctly, they're allowing about 6,000 season ticket holders who happen to opt in, along with around 2,000 family, frontline workers, staff, etc. My prediction for the Green Bay versus Los Angeles Rams game, as I always do provide a prediction for a Green Bay game. Looking at it, it is Green Bay has the number one ranked offense, and Los Angeles has the number one ranked defense in the playoffs and this regular season in general. Should be an interesting game. I am predicting that Green Bay will win 34-17, and for my bold prediction, as I like to throw those out, I think that Davante Adams will catch 2 touchdowns over Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey is one of the better corners in the NFL. I don't think he's the best. I think Jair Alexander is one of the best in my biased opinion because I am a Packer fan. But I do think that Jair Alexander of the Green Bay Packers is a better corner. But I am getting sidetracked in my bias. I apologize for that. But my bold prediction for that is Adams catches 2 touchdowns over one of the top corners in the league, Jalen Ramsey. But of course, we will see what happens this weekend. I hope for a Packer win. Go Pack Go. I will see you all in the next video. Have a good one, everyone.